Welcome back to OpenLine tonight. I'm here with Ellen Lehman from the Community Foundation of Middle Tennessee, talking about what's going on in Gatlinburg, the Smoky Mountain fires, and how you can help, and how that help is going to be sustained over the years to come, because this really is a tragedy that we will continue to see unfold. Not just that horrible video we're seeing now with the fire still burning, but of the consequences of those fires. Ellen, an amazing amount of donations already have poured in, almost $300,000 online.
Yes.
Do you have a guesstimate of where that might be, maybe a week or two down the road?
I have no idea. I would love to have a crystal ball and be able to answer that question, but I hope people will continue to give, because the problems are going to continue to unfold. You know, one of the problems that Gatlinburg is going to have is that their economic structure is so dependent upon tourism and entertainment, and it's going to take a little while before people start coming in at the levels that they used to be.
Well, sure, because even though downtown Gatlinburg is mostly intact, many of the cabins that people would rent or stay in are just not there to do that.
Right.
And the people who work there, their homes are gone.
Another thing is that they have always depended upon the fall season for people to go and look at the beautiful leaves and enjoy the crisp air. The air will still probably be crisp, but the leaves are going to take a long time coming back. And I understand there's real concern about the wildlife, because that too has been an attraction for so many decades. And you know, how to rebuild and give that time, it's just going to take time.
It is going to take time, and like you said, there will be different layers of this tragedy, from what is happening now with the emergency needs to then rebuilding the economy, to then dealing with the mental aspect of what has happened, which is very serious, and it will unfold. So when we talk about all the money that's being donated, have you all picked specific organizations to work with that have been vetted, that are there on the ground, that have always been there? How does that work?
Well, so immediately we started doing research. We serve the 40 counties of Middle Tennessee all the time, and we really hadn't made that many grants in the Gatlinburg area in Sevier County. We immediately started doing research on those, and we found that the good news is that I believe all of the existing nonprofits were unscathed. We're not in the line of the fire, but that they really did not have as robust a nonprofit sector as we're used to in Middle Tennessee. So we have a list of all the organizations. There is, of course, a humane society, and a lot of people will have pets that they can't find, and hopefully they will all end up there. And there are various ministries that are there, and there's a YMCA, and there are, I didn't bring the list, but there are probably about a good dozen or so organizations that will be a first line for us. What we have found is that when people are traumatized by some sort of disaster like this, they want to go to people who they trust and they know. And so that will be the first line. There will be things that they haven't built into that infrastructure because they've never needed it. Case management is one, where people in Gatlinburg, just as in Nashville when we had the flood, there were lots of people who had never asked for help.
Yeah. You don't know where to turn, you don't know where to go, what's available.
And you feel kind of bad about it because you've always been the person who's helped. And here you are, and the roles are reversed, and it is a very hard transition for a lot of people. And so case management can help people understand that it's just their turn. They haven't done anything wrong. They need help. They're, you know, do unto others.
Sure. Is there anything that you look for in a specific organization when you say, okay, we feel comfortable giving this donated money? What are you looking for?
We are looking for what their mission is. We are looking at their financial history. We are looking at their audits, their 990s, their tax forms. We are looking at their governance. We want to see, for instance, that there's more than 3 people on the board, 2 of whom are related. We want to know that their governance system is in place. And we are generally we are very well informed about that in Middle Tennessee because we have a website called givingmatters.com, which anybody can get on and look up information about any nonprofit. We don't have that in Gatlinburg, and so we will be trying to come up with that same basic information so that we can assure everyone within the sound of my voice that that this money will be used wisely and well. Gatlinburg's never had a disaster like this, and so they are really going to go through some black and blue learning about what to do and what not to do.
And you can't blame anybody for that. I mean, it is kind of a live and learn situation.
Yes.
And when you're knee deep in the mud, you're going to make some mistakes. But hopefully, taking the right steps along the way, the right things are going to happen more often than not. We do have a few callers on the line. I have Brian who called in tonight. Brian, thank you for being with us. Are you there, Brian? Brian, I'm going to give you one more shot here. Are you there, Brian? Okay, we'll come back to him. I think I also have Mike on the line, or maybe this is Brian.
Hi, yeah, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Go ahead.
When I was younger, I went to Dolly World. That was more like commercial. But the last few times, I used to pass through there going to Florida and stuff a lot. I remember Gatlinburg, if I remember, it's like a downtown. There's like a small downtown, little road like any town. And it's kind of clean to the mountain. It doesn't go that far, and it's not that big of a town. My impression was 4,000, 5,000, or 6,000 people. But then most people had these cabins up in the hills. And then over years, they became more than cabins. They're like these first-class, world-class accommodations, people that owned them. And then you had more and more like the other. And what's the difference between Gatlinburg and Pigeon Forge? And I know that, and forget about the entertainment places, but how many people actually live there? I wasn't sure the population. And then I was concerned about the wildlife. I'm a member of the Sierra Club. I'm concerned about the raccoons and then the people that got hurt. And it seems like they have a tight lid on it. And it seems like to me that the watching color season was already, should have been already gone, but it had been delayed because of the warm weather. So the colors had just finally started coming out. Is that correct?
And I learned
they got a lot more people caught there than should have been there. It should have been an off season right between the colors and the Christmas. There shouldn't have been that many people around, but there was a lot.
Brian, good point. I learned as we were covering this, a lot of people were up there for the Thanksgiving weekend.
Exactly.
And it's just a tradition to celebrate Thanksgiving there. They were there with their families. These cabins were booked. It wasn't just the fall color because we kind of passed that peak by a long shot. But people were celebrating the holiday there and maybe had just planned to stay another week or so and got trapped.
The weather was great.
Yeah. Why not be there?
Why not be there? And I think you are right. I think there is a very small population of people who live there, small by our metrics, but it's probably about 5,000. And the difference between Pigeon Forge and Gatlinburg and Sevierville is a matter of a few miles. That's one of the reasons that we've really started talking about Sevier County as a whole, because it's very hard to, it's like everywhere else, even in Nashville, where it's hard to know where Oak Hill is versus Forest Hills versus Davidson County. And those are just, at some point, just arbitrary.
Sure, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Whoever was affected was affected.
Yeah.
We also have Mike on the line. Mike, I'm sorry I got you confused a little bit earlier and hung up on you. I apologize for that. Go ahead with your comment or question. Mike?
Oh, hi, ma'am. Sorry about that.
No, go ahead. I'm glad we get to talk to you tonight. What's your comment or question?
Hey, my question is, has the president, is he going to be able to come up and maybe declare that a disaster area? My other question is, I just want to say that I think we all need to unite together and keep our prayers for those people up there that lost their family members. And I want to know, can people of the churches get involved to come up and maybe help people up that way and pray with them and let them know that God did not do this, that, God's going to rebuild the Pigeon Forge and rebuild it stronger than it ever has. And I'll hang up. Thanks for your time.
Okay, Mike, thank you for calling in. I don't know about the call for volunteers just quite yet. We certainly haven't reported on that because right now they're just letting people back in, the public back in. Right. They changed it to Friday morning starting at 7. It was supposed to be this Wednesday, but now they're saying Friday. They opened this past weekend to people who had property there and could prove that so they could go check on their property. So, I don't really think that they want an onslaught of people coming in at this point. They're just trying to really figure out what's going on right now just in their little town.
Right, that's exactly right. So I also think that the same is really true for gifts of things.
Yes.
Gifts of things are not really helpful right now. Gifts of money is helpful because money can, of course, replenish supplies and it's just a lot more flexible. These people who got out of their homes in their cars probably threw everything they could grab in the cars and filled them up, and they don't have a place to put things. The city has lost so many structures, or the county has lost so many structures that there are not places to store, another 5 pallets of water bottles even. And so right now we just need to hold off. We need to think about how we can volunteer our time. We need to think about gifts of things in the future, but right now money is going to be the most flexible to address things. I also want to commend you on your interesting question about the presidentially declared disaster area. We do a lot of work in disasters and really around the country, and which I can talk about it in a minute, but we have not yet found a single fire that has been presidentially declared, a presidentially declared disaster, which definitely limits the way that the response happens, both from the federal government, FEMA, and also from TEMA, and also from the local emergency management things. But it is a really good question, and thus far it has not been declared.
Very interesting. Okay, on that note, we're going to take another quick break. Thank you for your phone calls, both Brian and Mike. If you have a question or concern, or have been to Gatlinburg in the last week, if you own property there, give us a call tonight. We'd love to hear from you. We'll be right back.